Hi, everybody. Art Gruenberger here with Puppet Art Theater Company and the people of Puppet Pages. Today, I get the pleasure to talk with Heidi Rugg of Barefoot Puppet Theater. We hope you're going to stick around with us and ask some questions and join in. So we'll start in just a moment. Heidi Rugg has been performing and building puppets for over 20 years. She's founded the touring company Barefoot Puppet Theater in 1997. And what it says here that you'd never used power tools when you started building puppets at the beginning?
It's not that I hadn't really used them. I just didn't own any when I started building my first puppet stage. So I had one of those those little miter kind of box things, and you could angle it, and there was a hand saw, and I did everything by hand when I built my very first stage.
So it wasn't like a political statement. You just didn't have power tools.
No. And then my then fiance got me a compound power miter chop saw, and I yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yes. So we both have a common love for power tools. He actually was a mechanic when we met, and so he actually had like cool power tools, but most of them were for vehicles, not for chopping up wood.
Nice. Nice. Although I bet you could get in plenty of trouble with the power tools for vehicle maintenance, right?
Yeah. Actually, he has these really expensive. They're called vernier calipers. Like they're really I don't know. And I was trying to measure something. I was like, oh, this is a cool thing. And he's like, oh.
Because it's like hundreds of micro.
He's like, maybe I should show you. Let me. But
Nice.
No,
well, welcome, Heidi. It's great to have you here. Listen, it's been a real hoot getting to know you as we've been playing around with all of the stuff that we've been playing around with Puppet Pages. That's been really terrific. But the very first time I met you was at a national festival where you were doing a mech workshop, and it was the mechanism. I ran out to the garage about a half an hour to go because it's been bouncing around my garage for a while. It's the one where you pull the little trigger and the little mouth opens and closes. And as I've been watching some of you have one right over there. Is that, yeah, as I've been watching some of the videos that you've shared with me, I'm noticing that not only you have, the vertical version of it where you pull down, but you've got a lot of versions where you are going into the back of your puppet almost horizontally, holding it, and you're able to still trigger the mouth. And so you are a bit of you're mech obsessed, I would say.
I like mechs. That particular mechanism, I actually literally dreamed. I was building a show, and I was super stressed out because the way I had been building mouths, I was like, this will not work. I cannot trigger it the way I want to trigger it. And so I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was like, oh my gosh, and there was paper, and I drew a thing, and I woke up the next morning, and I was like, what was that? And I looked at the picture. It took me a few minutes, and I was like, oh, it'll work. And it did. I was excited.
That's really, really cool. I think the takeaway that I took from that class, not only use more springs, that was certainly a takeaway, but I think one of the things that you said in that class was that I wanted to build a mechanism where a puppet will do 50 million different things. And I think you said in the class that if you build a mechanism that is going to do one thing that really enhances the character of that puppet, that is a really good thing. And when I went home from that workshop, I was building a new set of our Three Little Pigs puppets, and we went from sort of glove style puppets to rod puppets, and so I thought, what is going to, the two pigs that run away from the big bad wolf, what is going to really enhance those characters? And so I made this mechanism where the arms would fly up in the air, and as they're being chased by the wolf, they've got this little bit of wiggle that's going on, but it's just a real simple trigger mechanism that would flip the hands up in the air and keep them up right around their heads. And it was just the perfect movement for those puppets. So thank you for that. So when you're building stuff, is that something that you still think about when you're building a mechanism for a puppet, or what, how do you decide?
Yeah, I think it's important to, to think a lot about the character, and like you said, like what actually enhances the character, and is there one, one thing or I mean, I'm kind of like not more than two things for two reasons. One, like too many mechs means more things can break, which is always a danger when you're touring a show. And then you're far away from the power tools that you love, and you're I was down in Atlanta doing shows, and like I had a puppet break during a show. And fortunately they have the Center for Puppetry Arts, like right down the hall, they have like this great, workshop. And it was really cool because it turns out that they actually had a spring winder. Did I have a spring
What?
winder? No, see, I've done this
I
workshop
don't
a
think
couple of times.
so. Yeah.
So the first time I did it, I did not have a spring winder, but now I have the spring winder. And it's like this machine, and it makes springs. And it's so nice because oftentimes, I go into hardware stores, like you go into Lowe's and you're playing with all the springs, and somebody walk by and they're like, "Can I help you?" And you're like, "No."
Now you've messed up my rhythm. Where did I start? I've got to
let
start
me
all
let
over
me
again.
bend let me bend, and then they're in packages and you can't touch them. Like how can
So
I know
you're
if it's
bending
gonna
it
work
through
unless
like the
I like,
plastic packaging and
yeah, I need to like mess around with them. And but now I can make both compression and extension springs using this machine. And anyway, it was the coolest thing when I found out they had it. So I was
wow.
totally geeking out over that machine. And I was like, Sam, you know what a great Mother's Day present would be? He loves the fact that he can buy me power tools for, of course, like, he would, like when he got me that compound power miter chop saw thing, like our first real, I guess, I think we were still engaged. I'm trying to remember. I think we were. Um, and he was in line, and he loves to tell the story about how he was in line and he is telling the guy in line, like, "I'm getting this for my wife for Christmas." They're like, "She's gonna
Like,
kill
dude,
you."
you've got the best wife ever. Oh no, they
No, everyone's like, "She's gonna be so mad." He's like, "No, no, no, she wants this." And yeah, everyone was like, "Wow, I wish I could buy my wife power tools." So
nice,
it's
nice.
a good deal. It's and he likes good tools too. Like that's what's really nice. He's not about like, like, it's the really good quality, good mechanical metal everything tools.
So if do you I mean aside from the spring creator, do you have a favorite power tool that is like you use more than any of the rest of them?
I mean, not really. Um, I mean, drill presses are great because they just, drill presses and chop saws. I mean, that's seriously like most of what that's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we were talking a little bit before we started the program, and we were talking about how you were a touring puppeteer and how you would tour with your entire family when you started out, right? Not that that was the plan, but that just happened to work. So tell me a little bit about what that was like.
Oh gosh. Now I'm gonna have to be careful here. We some of the stuff, because it's weird when you're traveling with your children, and sometimes the venue you're going to is a school, right? And so there was always this sort of, weird, um I don't even know what the exact word is, but we were always having to sort of manage that very, very sort of carefully. And I don't, maybe, I mean, I feel really fortunate. Like nobody ever came up to us. We always just explained, like, well, we homeschool because we tour, and they were like, "Oh, okay, like that makes sense."
So you never
Um,
got any flack from showing up at a school or an event and saying, "Oh yeah, and here's my family that's with
no,
me."
well, because my husband and I would usually perform together, and our girls are actually also 6 years apart. So, and sometimes we could arrange to like leave the girls with my mom or with, somebody in Sam's family. Like we could sometimes do that, but sometimes that just didn't work. Um, and both girls were very, very different. our younger daughter, she was now 13. When she was young, like she could not stay still. Like she's very kinetic. She was always like perpetual motion child. Whereas
So would you be doing the show and then also having your mom ear out listening for your daughter moving around and stuff?
yeah,
I mean,
see,
oh my goodness.
now I'll tell you what we did, and like like this makes me nervous just a little bit, only because look, we did not have to do this for our older daughter, okay? But what worked is our daughter understood boundaries, like if you set them. And I always felt weird doing this. I'm going to make a confession to you. I'm going to confess to the universe right now. But
Just
this was the
between you and
reality of
I
what
and the
we had
entire
to
internet.
do, right? So sometimes I do solo shows. Now, when I did a solo show, it was all fine. I had this like special triggering system set up for sound so that I could trigger sound from around the stage with these foot pedals, and it was easy. So if my husband had to leave the room with kids, that was fine. And that worked out great. But like when we're doing a show, there's like this like 50 to 60-minute window where like I absolutely have to like not
You have to
parent.
focus. Yeah.
And so then it's like, what do we do? And so for the 2-person shows, fortunately, those stages are larger and they're wider, right? So we were able to sort of set up a backstage area, which sometimes we would put down using gaff tape, like a tape line. We're like, stay inside the box. I mean, it was a big box, but it was still a box. This is the
Nice.
thing I feel
Nice.
weird telling people. I'm like, we made a tape box for our child and she stayed inside it. I
Well, it's
mean,
not like you did it with a shock collar or something like that, or
no,
put her
no.
in a
I mean,
kennel.
even
Or
like she was really good when she did it. And like, if her older sister was with us, then that was even a little bit more manageable because they were 6 years apart, and so the older sister could help out with the younger sister,
sure,
but
sure.
sometimes that did not work out well. So we had to sort of be careful. Our older daughter, from like the age of like 6 months old, she would sit and watch a show like from start to. I mean, like it was weird. I just.
Like
I mean, but
over and over, and like every time how many
yes.
times has she seen the show, right? I mean, that's insane. That's
Right,
nuts.
up until she was like 10, and then she was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'm out.
I've seen them all. I know all the words. She would listen to me rehearse, and she'd be like, "You missed that line."
Yeah, there's no more subtlety for her. She's learned it all. She knows it all. She knows every variable that would ever happen. Nice.
Yeah, but I mean, it is challenging when you're touring with kids. We tried really hard to. I mean, there's a weird balance. I think anytime like you're parenting, you're self-employed, there's a weird kind of seesaw that you navigate. And so yeah, and like we had to, like, there were periods of time where we would have to like keep our touring schedule kind of on the light side, just like intentionally.
Yeah.
Just for to, because that's what we needed to do.
Yeah.
But
and with
yeah,
a job like this, you have that sort of flexibility, which is fantastic.
right. And so I could sort of plan like how, and it was one of those things where like usually had to work on Saturdays, usually could leave the kids somewhere on a Saturday easily, really easily. Sunday, Mondays were more of a weekend, tried to not book Tuesdays, and then we sort of booked out from Fridays. So there was like this, I don't know. So the week ended up having a rhythm to it that worked out well for our family. And fortunately, like those years of putting down tape lines, like that was a very small window, but it's so vividly painted in my head because it was, just one of those things where you're like, I'm a terrible parent, but like, but I'm protecting my child, and like,
Well,
you just.
if your 13-year-old years from now is in therapy and talking about the tape box, then maybe you can be concerned.
I don't even think she remembers that now. Like, I'll have to go ask her when we're done. I'll be like,
Totally.
and she'll be like, "Oh my gosh, were you talking about me just now? Like, what did you say?" And she's gonna be
No. Nice.
I probably have other parents I know who are watching this, and they're like, "It's so great to hear when somebody else does a crazy parenting thing, because then you just feel normal."
I'm sure they're all putting tape boxes in their houses right now.
I know,
like,
it's really a smart idea, especially pandemic times. This is your school box. right here.
There we
These
go.
are tape
Right.
lines in
Yeah.
between it. And now
Resource.
the other child, you're over
Recess
here.
is the box over there.
It's like
So
we're in boxes right now. It's like that, only tape on the floor. Stay in the box.
nice, nice. Jeff says, Heidi, just in case you were
Jeff!
wondering. There we go. All right. Hi,
Oh,
Jeff.
Jeff has
Welcome.
massive band skill saws. I'm highly envious. He can
Really?
take like a stack of construction paper. I don't know what sort of voodoo he does. And then he like cuts out these crazy puppet patterns on the bandsaw.
There's just
It,
something sexy about that.
it is. It is. It's pretty hot. But
So I have a question for you. So I know you're the Met Queen and you love building, but if you had to choose for the rest of your life between building puppets or performing puppets, what would you choose?
well, that's a tough call. See, I'm like, nah. Um, because I really do I do love performing, and I love writing shows too. So it's like that's another component, right? Like building shows and writing and they're all kind of interconnected.
Yeah.
um but as you get like closer to like, I don't know, 60, let's say, like when you like get a certain amount past 30 and you like 60 is getting ever encroaching closer. It's a tough call, because commission work, if I was just doing that like that, I like building puppets that I use in my shows.
Yeah.
Commission work is so much harder
Oh,
because
I hate it. I hate building
because
puppets for
um
other people. Yeah.
because people don't know what they want. They're just like, I want a puppet. And then you have to figure it out, like, and you have to ask 5 million questions, and then like you realize 3/4 of the way through the process that you forgot to ask two that were actually probably the most important ones. um
Yeah, 90% of building for someone else is training them to on what questions they need to be asking. And like what is the puppet doing? Oh, what is
mhm.
the puppet doing? I have no idea. Why are you using a puppet? Well, kids like puppets. Ah!
Actually, what I would do,
Mm,
like if I could do something like long-term future kind of projection thing. I thought about this. Now that you mentioned this, like, um so I had this side project, the Fettig project, which I can talk about the origins of that. That's a whole side thing. But um I think it would be fun to, I like the idea of traveling and teaching how to use mechs, and like sharing stuff from the Fettig project with people. And I would love, I don't know. So that would
all
be a
right,
fantasy job,
you've
right?
opened up the box, right? So tell me about the Fed. I know a little
I,
bit about the FedEd project from a couple of things, from taking your Met class, but from also the Naked Puppet exhibit, which is
mhm.
very connected to the FedEd project. So can you talk
Yeah,
a little about both of those things?
right. So I forget, it was like 2012, 2013. I was at the O'Neill Center, which is up in Waterford, Connecticut, and they have the National Puppetry Conference there every June. And it's like puppet camp, but for grown-ups. And it's and I know you've been there, right? Because you led a workshop there
I
recently.
got to be guest artist there in 2017 or 18. Yeah.
Yes, so because people are like, oh, Art, I know Art because he did a thing. So and I was there, and I had been taking, Jim Krupa's mech workshop, and he has, at the very end, he'll like lay out all these mechs, and everybody gets to like just
Isn't that just magical? I mean, I've got videotape after videotape of me playing with a little blink mechanism or a little, oh, that's a
no,
magical.
it's super fun.
Yeah.
And so I was like playing with the mechs, and I was like, it'd be cool. I was like, you go to like a puppet festival, and they always have a beautiful exhibit of
But
all
you
these
can never
amazing
touch
puppets.
any of the puppets, right?
Right. And I was like, there needs to be an exhibit where you can touch the things and like feel how they work. They don't even need to be done. I don't care. I just want to feel how a specific mechanism works and kind of like see like, how does the head rotate with that mechanism that I saw in a picture in a book, um, made with
How
materials
it's
that,
supposed to feel, right?
right, because that's so um important. And so I don't even know who I was talking to. I, but I was like, there should be a thing. 2 hours later, somebody comes running up to me and they're like, oh, hey, I hear you're doing an exhibit. It's going to be like hands-on touching puppets exhibit. And I was like,
Am
and then
I?
somebody else came up to me and they're like, oh, I heard about the thing you're working on. I was like, oh crap. Apparently I'm working on a thing now. And it was just like some random side comment I made. But it just sort of like it stuck around in my head. I was like, oh, I need to do this thing because I want to see it and nobody else is stepping up to, do this thing. And um so it's called the Fettig project, and it's the idea of like making a bunch of mechs. So Hans-Jürgen Fettig was a master puppet builder. He just and he cataloged a bunch of mechs that were designed by other people, and he has a bunch of books out which sell for hundreds of dollars on eBay.
I was just looking. I see the Hand and Rod puppet book by Fettig is $2.49 right now on Amazon,
Yes.
and that's the skinny one too. That's not the big chunky one. Yeah.
Right. So, unless you know somebody who has like a magical bootleg PDF version of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't know anybody who might do that. So, the educational purposes. It's so hard because that book is seriously out of print. All of his books are out of print. And
I taught at a library or at a college, and I was thumbing through their puppetry books, and they have one, and I thought, well, if I never checked this back in, would they fine me the $20 they think this book is worth? Or I checked it back in, and so students have access to it. But that was a hard choice, man.
very like ethical dilemmas that we face, especially if you're like, nobody's ever checking this out.
Oh, I was the first person in like 10 years to check out the book too. So that was in my thinking as well.
Right. And so I think it was the oh gosh, it was the Swarthmore festival. Was it 2013 or 2015? I think it must have been 2013.
Mm.
I think the Swarthmore festival. No.
That was about 5 years ago, right?
2015 was UConn. Sorry, UConn is where I was going.
That was in 2013. Was it?
That was 2015.
Wow.
2015 was the UConn festival, I think. No, it had to have been 2015. I don't know. Did Ray DeSilva sanction that version, the PDF version? I
don't know, Mark. But now we know
so many rumors.
We are not endorsing nor confirming that, but
no.
Check it out.
Rumors, so many rumors. So I don't. The festival was coming up, and I was like, that would be a really good time to have this thing, and so to make it, like most people in the puppetry world who are into mech design, like they know the name Hans-Jürgen Fettig, or they quickly come to know it when they are looking for books on mechanisms. And so like the project, like gathering together the people to try and like build things to put into this exhibit that's like sort of the Fettig project, is like the idea of building them. And then the Fettig project group creates the naked puppet exhibit because that sounds much more fun. Especially because, it is primarily geared towards adult puppet builders who, want to be able to see what all the mechanisms, how they work and everything.
What was really cool about the exhibit is you had not only mechs that you had made and had in there that people could play around with that were completely raw. They would do one thing. They would make an eye blink, or they would make a head turn, but other people started bringing things in as well. So did you do sort of an open call? Would you be willing to, come in and bring a mechanism in that you have that people could play around with, or like how did you get other people involved?
It was just sort of it was I don't even remember initially how it got rolling. I think it was a lot of people at the O'Neill that first year that were like, I still want to do that. Like everyone, like let me know about your project and how to be involved with that. And I was like, I just want a committee of other people. Like, I don't know that I want this to be like Heidi's thing, but but I wanted it to be done, really well. And Bart up at UConn, he was really behind the idea because UConn has such a prodigious intensive building program. So they actually also sort of lent from their kind of stock stuff a bunch of things that we could also put out for the exhibit. It was super generous of them because that really rounded out what we had, because we filled out this whole ginormous room. We covered it with 1-inch square graph paper, like all over all the surfaces, so that everybody could photograph all the mechanisms and kind of get a sense of scale, because that's also really difficult to
Absolutely.
keep track of.
Right.
But there were so many like really, really generous people who stepped forward to put things into the exhibit. Robin Walsh had this like amazing Bunraku puppet with this beautiful hand. Like,
oh, that hand moved so nicely. It was the hand that sort of went back and forth like this,
yes,
right?
it like did this whole thing, and it was so articulate. And then Greg Ballora, hi Jeff. Greg Ballora had this very it was just so the way he had the arm rod attached to the hand, and it was just it wasn't like complicated at all, but it was so like I don't even know what the word is. It was like that kind of simplicity, this elegant simplicity, right? Like it got this like just really elegant movement out of it just from being so simple.
The crazy thing about Greg too is he'll build something that is just exquisite and simple and does it just right, and then you'll talk to him a year later after you've seen that perfect mechanism that doesn't need any changes at all, and he will have somehow magically improved it and made it better and simpler and move just a little bit more. Oh, he's a genius, man, that guy, and just
right.
funny too.
So one of the things I had done in my geek out moments, because I have like there's like 3 different Fettig books, the main ones, different versions. So I had gone through all 3 and cross-referenced them and indexed all the mechanisms in all the books. I have a crazy chart, and like my fantasy for the future someday is like, wouldn't it be cool if we had like all the things, from the whole you know index. People still sometimes send me emails. They're like, I want the index. I'm like, I don't think you want the index. I think you want a bootleg PDF.
There you go.
I'm like, the index, you don't really learn anything from it other than like, here are a few things that have been built, and here are a mess of things that still need to be built. So, but that's, I don't know, that was like my major geek out moment with going through the books and sort of cataloging the mechanisms and what they did. Like I look back on that now, I'm like, what was I thinking? That was a lot of work. But
I was in Munich. We had Wendy Morton and I and a few other puppeteers. We had gone to the a shadow festival that happens every 3 years in Germany. And so Wendy and I snuck away and went to Munich because they had this little municipal museum, and it's supposed to have some puppets in it. So we thought, all right, we'll go and check it out. And it had just a whole wall full of, I'm going to say her name wrong, but Lottie Riniger's shadow puppets that she did all of her stop motion shadow films with. And then there was a whole case filled with Fettig puppets where you could see some of them were just like his prototypes that he had done. And it was one of the most incredible museums I've ever been to when it came to puppets, because of those 2 things and so many other things that this museum has. I just looked it up. They still have their puppet display up and running. If you're ever in Munich, it's really worth a visit when we can begin to travel again. So we can't travel anymore right now. We can't travel. You can't be touring right now like every other live touring puppeteer in the world. So March 13th, that was the date that everything shut down here in California and across the country. What was that like? What was 2020 looking like for you? And then you know, how did you cope with March 13th of this
Right.
year?
So, March 12th and 13th, we were doing puppet shows in Martinsville, Virginia, where we go there every well, like every year or two. We tend to rotate down there to do performances for the Piedmont Arts Association, and we were in 4 different schools, right? Morning, afternoon, and we always stay at like Ferrystone State Park, which is like right down the road. And and we had just literally 6 months prior, on September 13th, we had adopted a dog. And so, like, little did we know how important that would be to the moment. Like, seriously, everyone should have a dog right now. It like
Absolutely.
keeps you tethered to reality. You have to wake up each morning, if for no other reason than like the dog must go for a walk, and then the dog needs to eat, and then the dog needs another walk, and all the
And
things.
they have this ability to be happy no matter what else is going
I
on in the
know,
greater
and
world too,
I
right?
know, and they see you, and they like wag their tails, and they're just so happy. Yes.
Mine is
Um,
asleep underneath my chair right now as we speak. She grounds me for sure.
it's a really amazing how they do that. But we had gone out to Ferrystone, and so our younger daughter was with us, but we also had my sister-in-law, so Sam's sister Katie came with us. And so it was like this sort of this family trip. We were there, we were at Ferrystone. They got to hang around and go like try to hunt for Ferrystones, and the dog got to explore the park with them while Sam and I were off doing puppet shows. It was so idyllic. And when we were in the park, like we really didn't have cell phone reception. So, but and like we were kind of perfectly aware that like the world was maybe getting, I don't know, there was, and so you would drive into town, you would get reception, you'd be like, oh my gosh, there's like, what's going on in the world? And we were wrapping up, our last show on the 13th, and it was like, and everything was shut down. So it was like we had this long drive to get back home, with the dog and the sister-in-law, and it was kind of surreal, that whole experience. And then it was, and then like everything for first it was like this, like, we're just gonna shut down for like 2 weeks. And then it was like, or a month. And it just, and honestly, that probably made it harder. Like it would have been, I think, in a way, easier just to rip off the Band-Aid and say, you're just not
Yeah,
gonna.
but not knowing and the ever changing landscape that everything would change within 24 hours. It's like, oh, maybe some schools would be open, so we're going to aim at those. And then a day later, it's like, nope, nothing's going to be open there. And yeah, not knowing the unpredictability of it and how it would change both, like, how the virus was being passed and what was going to be happening. And oh yeah, that was just crazy making for sure.
So yeah, just no, and then of course, like having kids, and like we got home, and they also, of course, were shutting down the college where our older daughter was attending. And so we we got home really late on, we must have stayed over. We drove home Saturday, right? Because we were done too late in the day. So we had booked Friday night, also in Ferrystone. We did not rush home. We really took our time driving home because, we stopped at some, parks. We walked the dog an awful lot. And then, basically, my husband, Sam, got up bright and early Sunday morning, drove up to Philadelphia, picked up our daughter, drove back home, did that whole trip. And we brought all of our stuff home because I was just like, you know, it's not really that much extra work just to grab all of her stuff now. And so we did.
Wow, that was in hindsight, you must be really grateful for that.
Yeah, yeah.
So then everything gets shut down. You realize after a few weeks that this isn't a temporary thing. So how have you pivoted to being no longer a touring puppeteer to doing stuff online to teaching workshops? Like what have you been doing for the last 6 months to continue to be a working artist?
Yeah, it's it there's like the working artist thing, and then there's like the parenting thing, which are both sort of these, you know, um these competing uh uh they're both kind of pulling at me for different reasons. And because my husband and I work together, like we both tour. His other side gig was refereeing hockey. That all shut down like
Mm.
right away, as well.
Not a lot
And
of social distancing in hockey.
no, they
Yeah.
they they don't do that well. And if you've ever been inside a locker room at a no, like uh no. But so and I'll be honest, like the week, like it was maybe 10 days before, right? 10, I think it was 10 days before. I had literally like written a blog post that was all about our big plans for the rest of the year and our big plans for next year. It was because I was finally solidifying all that, and I was starting to put the marketing together, because it's next year's the 50th anniversary of when Lonesome George the Tortoise was found on Pinta Island, which is like, I have a whole show based on his story. And that was our big plan for next year. Like, we have this great window where our older daughter is finally in college. Our younger daughter does not need to be taped inside a box anymore. God, that sounds terrible. Um, and she's in this great window where she's not in high school yet, she's still in middle school, so we didn't have to worry about being tethered to, possibly, like, because our older daughter had done some coursework through the community colleges locally, and you're sort of tied, so she had to be able to drive and go places but still be parented. So we had this great window. It was like perfect window to go do a really big tour. And like, I really wanted to get to your side of the country, and I wanted to see big trees, right? That's like on my list. Like, I want to see big trees. And I had started putting out feelers to like venues west of the Mississippi, which, like, that's something we really haven't done much west of the Mississippi. But we wanted to do like a big tour just in celebration of it, and just as a
And
way to
great timing
travel.
with the 50th anniversary and everything too. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at a couple of minutes of the show. It's called Galapagos George. Is that correct? Let's take a look at a few minutes of that show, and then we'll talk about where you're at with that show and how you're going to celebrate this 50th anniversary of Galapagos George. Let's take a look. Here we go.
I don't think so. My mama's a lot bigger than you, and she can swim. But I don't think you could swim. So maybe you would be fun to play with. Wow! Wow! See, look at you. You are lots of fun. Come with me, come with me. Wow! Wow! Wada, 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 wada. Wada, 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 wada. Whee! I am so hungry today. That looks pretty tasty. What? Wait. Wait. You know how there are lots of crabs and fish and even lots of stars?
Sí, las estrellas.
Right. Well, sometimes, Pip, sometimes I wish that I wasn't the only tortoise on the island.
Oh, that's right. Mama told me that. She did. She says you're the only tortoise she's ever seen here before.
Right.
Hey, George,
Yeah, Pip?
I think I know my wish.
What's that?
Well, George, I wish that someday you could see other tortoises.
Really?
See, that's my wish.
That's a really nice wish, Pip. Thank you.
I have not seen that show, and I want to see that show. And gosh, I really hope you have the opportunity to be able to tour it. I would imagine the live impact of the audience seeing that set for the first time, because the set is absolutely beautiful. It's got so much depth, and it just gives you the sense of being in the Galapagos Islands. It's really, really cool. So are you figuring out ways to do that show via live stream? Is that like, how are you going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of George?
So it's hard to do. Planning right now is super challenging. I mean, we all know that. I have another artist friend of mine, and I love what they said. They were like, trying to talk to schools right now is like trying to talk to somebody whose hair is on fire. You just, like, you can't get their attention. Their hair is on fire. All they want is somebody to put out the fire. They don't care about how creative you are. They just can't process it right now.
Yeah.
So, and I think because everyone is struggling with how to adapt to being virtually right now, what school looks like, I don't know. Like, it's really going to be interesting to see where we are a year or two from now, because I don't know, there could be some really interesting things that come out of all of this. I'm always trying to be positive, like, let's make lemonade. Um, and so, like, I have a few bookings that are on the books right now, like for Galapagos George for next year. I mean, one thing I have done is I've pretty much told everyone, I was like, the only shows I am doing next year are Galapagos George and maybe Little Red and the Gingerbread Man, maybe. But they're both solo shows. It helps us simplify our lives to just sort of, I don't know, to work on that in that way. I've got, bookings, more bookings with Piedmont Arts.
And these are all
Ironically,
in-person bookings, right? This is all stuff that you have
they're
booked.
all like, I don't know, they're scheduled. So I have some bookings in March and in April, at the American Theater, which that was supposed to be in January, but that got moved to March, and we'll see. And we've already made backup plans for Piedmont Arts, for like, what if this has to be virtual? What are we doing? Are we streaming? What does that mean? So we're still trying to figure all that out. But I have a feeling that there's I think a lot of communities are, and this is kind of what I hope is happening, because I think it's important. Like, I think for artists to get through this time period, I think it is really important to focus more on our local environments. Like, I mean, I do a lot of shows, like, between, like, I would say our range is mostly between Boston and Atlanta. But we do a heavy amount of stuff outside of where we live. Even when we're in Virginia, we're still 100 miles or more outside of Richmond, a lot. So I'm really, I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens there. I tend to do more residencies here. I tend to do more workshops locally than performances. I know a lot of artists sometimes complain about that. They're like, it's easier for me to get a gig 100 miles from home than it is from home. That whole like think locally or that buy local thing, that I wish that would trickle down to the arts sector a little bit more. That would be nice.
Yeah.
So I do have some workshops, like some I've had more time to think, which has been that's been kind of nice, actually. Like, I've appreciated that I've had time to sort of to just really think a lot more about
Which is,
everything.
it's something you don't really have time to, as a working artist. We don't really have time to stop and for a month take a breath and evaluate and say, am I moving in the right direction? And it is lovely. I've had periods of those times that haven't been pandemic induced, where the business has taken off, and it becomes a little self-sufficient without me having to be right in the center of it, and it's still functioning. And that's given me those opportunities to sort of sit back and go, okay, are we heading in the direction that I want to be heading? And if not, what can I do to slowly steer the ship back into the direction that I want to head? I mean, that's always such a fun exercise to do, to say, okay, where do I want to go? Not what is possible, but where do I want to go? And then to begin to aim there. And so often it's like, that's where I will end up, or that will carry me to the next place that I was supposed to go.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm really glad you're getting that opportunity to take a breath and say,
And
okay,
that's been super necessary, especially because honestly, I had already put so much sort of mental time and energy into what 2021 was going to look like. And then all of a sudden 2020 like dissolved. And all the things I had lined up for 2020 that were supposed to kind of like lay a solid foundation for 2021, like that all went away.
yeah.
So yeah, it's been challenging. I think for some people, even the idea of what does a virtual show look like that is a mysterious. They can imagine like, oh, I saw stuff on YouTube, or but and I know like you have like the Mac Daddy setup with these like multiple cameras where you can live stream all your stuff, and you took your Stream Deck out of the box. Mine is still in the box. It is not like, I look at it, it's really pretty. I'm like, that is so pretty. I'm gonna do some neat stuff in October. I need to set a deadline and make that happen. But
I hear you. If it wasn't out of necessity of not only keeping income coming in, but keeping some puppeteers working as well to the best of my ability, that was 6 weeks of panic for me. Right, after March 13th, was trying to figure out, is it, do I need to go get a job at the grocery store, or can I engage in doing this work in some other format? Heidi, I could talk about this with you forever, but we are heading into 50 minutes, which is incredible. We aim for 45, so we don't want to take advantage of our audience. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about? Anything that you'd like to sort of say, hey, you should check this out, because I know you're on Puppet Pages, and if you guys go to Puppet Pages, you can see some of the stuff that Heidi's kicking around and may have going in October. Like, what do you have, like a sneaky little plan for October that's like, this is what I would love?
My big plan right now, which is like about to go live, is my website is been in the process of having a makeover done, which it has a great design. It's super pretty, but then I was like, oh my gosh, now I need to edit all the photos that go in all those pretty boxes, and they all need to be the right size, and I need to figure out how all the links work. But the new web page makes everything much more clear about what it is that I'm doing right now. Because you go to the webpage right now, and it's still kind of like, is she doing virtual stuff? I'm like, oh gosh, like I do if you click on these two buttons, but it's too much work. So I've been working to clarify that, but I didn't want to do just something schlocky that, so that is happening. And I'm also about to open up, gosh, this is safe to say. Yeah. Like, I think that for a lot of teachers, like maybe they don't have a lot of experience on how a virtual workshop or virtual program can work. So I'm setting aside these like free 20-minute consultation sessions. That's one of the things that's going to be up on the front page where
Nice.
people can block those just to have a conversation, going, because there's so much stuff you can do in this space. And we've all been like playing around with, and I say playing in a very serious way, because trying to figure out like what kind of stage is this, like what is stage left, stage right, and then also like how do we make the space engaging. I am heavily involved. There's a circus arts program here in Richmond, and like that was such a big component of what we did with that whole program. So I mean, I'm really game. I'm trying to be flexible. I'm also trying to like flex my programming a little bit. It's like, yes, I have Galapagos George. I was like, and I also am working on this concept for this talk show with endangered animals, where the kids can make endangered animals and then they can like talk about their own plight. So trying to figure out how to kind of do something like what I already did, but from a sort of more teaching artist perspective. Because I think kids need to be seriously need to be creatively engaged right now, in a positive, way.
And
And
as difficult as it is, there is something to quality screen time, right? There is something to having an engagement and having this opportunity to have every single kid in your audience be front row, right in the center, where you can give them that sort of special attention. There are plenty of things that are missing from live streaming workshops and performances, but there are some things that are working really, really well. So excellent.
Right. And teachers cannot be expected to be like these professional entertainers that provide 5 to 6 hours of nonstop entertainment. Like nobody can do that.
Yeah.
Like really, that's not a thing.
That's yeah.
So pulling on the people in your community who who've been working really hard on figuring out how to do this.
Yeah,
And
let us take some of the
putting them
load
to
off
work.
of your shoulders.
Yeah, which I think is what the benefit of working with, somebody who's a teaching artist, somebody who's an artist, bringing them in to have that creative engagement. I think it's mental health for the teacher as well, and the teacher can be energized by that kind of interaction. Because when you're interacting with young children, that's exhausting. That's why parents have play groups. It's not really so their kids can play; it's so they can engage with other adults. That's really what's going on.
Absolutely. Good. Well, Heidi, gosh, it's just been great talking with you.
Yeah.
What I hope for you is I hope you put a little tape box in the middle of your house somewhere and just watch. Don't say anything about it. See how your daughter reacts to it. And if all of a sudden she's like staying in the tape box, you've got to come back and let us know. All right? Will you do that?
I don't know. I'm sort of terrified now because I'm sure I'm going to hear about this. I'm going to hear about this. My daughter will be like, so my friend just told me that their mom said that you said that there was.
Yeah, you might be in trouble.
I'm sure I'm in trouble. Usually, yeah. But thank you, Art. This is always such a pleasure. I'm so glad you're doing this for Puppet Pages. It's been so much fun to watch everybody else's interview, and because I don't know, puppetry is such a diverse art form. Like you could ask people to build the same show, and they would all be different. So
absolutely, and it's such an eclectic group. It's been really fun to get to know y'all. Well, thank you guys for joining us. My name's Art Gruenberger. This is Heidi over here. Check out Puppet Pages to check out what Heidi's doing, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your afternoons. Thanks for spending some time with us today.